What is education? The education world that we inhabit is one that seems to focus on what I want to call instrumental priorities. I mean by this that education acts as a tool, and the tool is predominantly focused on economic matters. So we regard education as an institution that increases our earning power, an institution that generates more economic growth, an institution that enables us to get on in life. However, I want to argue that education, in its most basic formulation, isn't primarily about economic matters. It's a political matter. Education should be about passing on the world from an older generation to a younger generation. And not just passing on that world, but enabling those younger people to act within the world that they find themselves within. Acting within the world will mean setting it right, fixing the world for themselves. This is something that I think is an urgent matter, given the political crisis that we inhabit right now with so much instability in the world. Now, the education institutions that we inhabit, they're very much forced to compete with one another, like firms within a market. Schools, universities, colleges compete in league tables. They try and get the highest grades. They try and get their students into the best employment. They try and increase earning power. But it shouldn't be this way. What we need is an education system that encourages more creativity, more imagination, and an ability to enable people to live together, to operate together. In this talk, I want to mention an important philosopher for me called Hannah Arendt. She was writing in the second half, mainly, of the 20th century, and one of her most well-known books is called The Human Condition. And in The Human Condition, she discusses the concepts of earth alienation and world alienation. Let me try and explain them for you. The book was published in 1958, just shortly after the first satellites were put into space. And those satellites were able to photograph the planet Earth for the very first time. This made more possible the idea that leaving the planet Earth might be a viable alternative to remaining on the planet. Now, as resources on Earth get depleted, it makes it more and more costly, more and more expensive to find and make use of those resources. The price of life on Earth goes up, if you like. As life on Earth becomes more expensive, the alternative, life on another planet, begins to appear better value. And Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, these entrepreneurs with lots of money are investigating the possibility of technologies like terraforming. So I read recently that aerogels are now possible. This is a form of technology which mimics the greenhouse effect on Earth. Aerogels can be placed on effectively dead planet, and the greenhouse effect warms up the Earth underneath, generating fertile land, creating the possibility of life on another planet. Hannah Arendt's idea of Earth alienation is this notion of fleeing our planet and moving to another world. But she says that Earth alienation also leads to world alienation. The fact that we can live elsewhere means that we no longer have to face the problems that we have on our world. Let me try and explain a little bit more about Earth and world. Earth, very broadly for her, corresponds to the category of the oikos. That's the private realm in ancient Greek society. It's where we get the word economics from. Economics was about balancing the books. Economics was about survival. It was about necessity, about laboring, about consumption. The world, on the other hand, for her, is about freedom. It's about acting. It's about generating something that outlasts us as individuals. We die off, the world carries on. And Arendt thinks that the modern world faces a situation where those categories have become collapsed, where we no longer pay enough attention to the world and pay more attention to life instead. And this for her is very dangerous. It's dangerous because we generate an environment that becomes impossible to live within. I think that's what's happening in education. And we can see it in the form of status anxiety. We can see it in the form of stressed out young people at university. We can see it in the form of people under lots and lots of pressure to achieve exam results, even when they're very young. I don't think that's what education should be about. It should be about people learning to be creative, learning to use their imagination, learning to solve problems collectively together and to rub along together. Now, this status anxiety isn't just at the level of individual young people, it also exists at the level of teachers. Teachers are under pressure to achieve results. It also exists at the level of managers in educational institutions, under perhaps even more pressure. The institutions themselves suffer from status anxiety. They have to achieve high up positions in league table rankings. And if they don't, then the logic of the market dictates that the institution no longer exists. This is an education system that's geared towards the oikos, towards the economy, towards earth alienation, and not towards building a world. What we need instead is an education system, an educational institution that helps to build the world that we can live within, that helps to form relationships between people that can be productive in the broader sense, not in the economic narrow sense of just making more money. And in order to build these educational institutions, we need to focus in, for me, on the idea of authority. Now, teachers tend to be a little bit frightened of the word authority these days, and the reason is that its connotations are connected to punishment, connected to abuse of power, connected to all sorts of negative things, maybe associated with an educational world of the past as well, with their corporal punishment and so on. But authority is nothing to do with that for Hannah Arendt. She points out that the etymology of the term authority comes from the Latin auctoritas. Auctoritas relates to the idea of building a world. You might think of it like the relationship between the word authority and an author building a world in his or her books. Now, authority is sometimes described as power plus recognition. If students are going to achieve authority to be able to act in the world and to change that world, then they need to gain authority. And who will they gain that authority from but their teachers? So what we need is a situation within education where teachers hold authority, which is recognized by students, so that that authority can be transferred to those students, enabling them to act in the world and make the world a better place. This is a very different system, very different environment from the one that we currently inhabit. And I hope it changes soon. Thank you.